What is going on, YouTube? Today I would like to provide 5 tips for aspiring writers. For those who are unfamiliar, my name is Ryan David Ginsberg. I'm the author of It Was Just Another Day in America, a collection of short stories and poems, The Crumbling of a Nation and Other Stories, a collection of just short stories, and the upcoming novel, In the Algorithm We Trust, which will be my debut novel. And I have been writing nearly every day since I was 16 years old. The first 2 tips on this list are likely tips that you have already heard before, but just in case you haven't been told them, it is important that you know them. The first is to read frequently and to write even more frequently. Even the greatest writers of all time had to learn the craft from somebody. But an important thing to keep in mind when it does come to that reading is to make sure that you are reading all different types of genre. Even if you know that the only thing you want to write is science fiction, you should still be reading the other genres. Because every genre is going to offer you something different, something that you can learn from. And the same thing goes for authors. It is very important that you don't just read the same group of people. Behind me, I have featured some of my favorite authors. I have George Orwell, Kurt Vonnegut. Above them, I have James Baldwin and Allen Ginsberg. Over here, I have Herman Hesse. Behind me, I have some Jack London, some William Soroyan, some Franz Kafka. But they are far from the only authors that I read. There's a saying that I'm sure you've heard before. Good writers borrow, but great writers steal. And what this means is that great writers are able to find influence in their favorite author. And they are able to take the things that make their favorite authors great and turn them into something of their own. And that is why it is so important that you are reading different authors. Because every author's style is going to be different. And therefore, every author gives you a new opportunity to steal something. Second tip is that final drafts are not for good writing. They are just to get the story onto the page, to figure out what your story is even about. The great writing will come from the editing. Okay, so what I meant to say is that first drafts are not meant for your best writing because you need editing for that, but I did that on purpose just to kind of highlight how important editing is, right? Like, this was totally on purpose. Okay, back to the video. And it is important that you do not edit as you are writing the story. Get everything onto the page, figure out what your story is, who are your characters, where is the conflict, and once you have told a total story, you can get to editing. And likely when you go in for that first round of editing, you are going to be looking at a pile of garbage. But at least you have a pile of something. When it comes to my novel, In the Algorithm We Trust, the final draft that I have is significantly different than the first draft I wrote over 5 years ago. Everything in the story is different except for the major premise that drives it all, which is that all of America is controlled by a singular algorithm. Besides that, every character has changed, every storyline has changed, and even the tone of the novel has changed completely. Which brings me to tip number 3. Find the writing style that works for you. Whether you are satirical or serious, or you write with flowery language, or if you are just straight to the point. And keep in mind that just because you like to read a certain type of writing style doesn't mean that you need to write in the same way. For me, I absolutely love the writing of Fitzgerald. I also love the writing style of Tom Wolfe, but I could never write like either of those authors. And in the many times that I have attempted to write in their style, I found myself miserable. So figure out who you are as a writer. What kind of stories do you want to tell? How do you want to tell those stories? And how do you need to prepare for the writing to make sure that you are able to write the best story that you can write? Which brings me to tip number 4. Understand what your goals as a writer are. Do you want to write full time, or do you more so want to write on the side? Do you want to write stories that are just for entertainment, or do you want to write stories that are for education? Do you want to write stories that are going to fuel a revolution, or do you want to write stories that are going to hit on those romantic cravings? Do you want your stories to be mainstream and read by all different types of people, or do you aspire to write the stories that are often going to be niche and have a small audience but a passionate one? Because at the end of the day, there are all different types of writers, because there are all different types of readers. So figure out what type of reader do you want your writing to be targeted, because that's going to help you to set up your long-term goals and expectations as a writer. Because at the end of the day, there are books that can sell 50,000 copies and be seen as a failure, while there are other books that can sell 10,000 and be seen as a huge success, because the expectations of each of these categories differ drastically. The same thing goes for if you want to publish traditionally or to self-publish, but that's a whole other topic for a different video. And if you're interested in hearing my opinions on that, let me know in the comments below. And then finally, let's talk about tip number 5. Be prepared to sacrifice and to be patient. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I have been writing for 16 years. And up until about a year and a half ago, my writing career was absolutely nothing. I had almost no followers on all of my social medias, and the 3 books I had published before these 2 had absolutely tanked. In total, from these 3 books, I sold less than 200 copies. And from these 2 copies here, I have sold almost 20,000. But I never would have gotten to these numbers if I wasn't patient and okay with failing with these 3. Because at the end of the the day, there is no such thing as an overnight success. And that saying is the truest in the pursuit of any type of art. It takes a long time to figure out your style. It takes a long time to get even decent at writing. The first few years, the first few stories, the first few novels are going to suck. Because while this is going to be my debut novel, it is the 4th novel that I have written. And even though those first 3 novels will likely never see the light of day, I never would have written this one without them. And while these collections of poems and stories absolutely failed, without them, these 2 would never exist. So be prepared to spend years writing without having any concrete reward. And be patient with yourself when you fail or get rejected. Because great writing takes work. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of patience. But never stop believing in yourself. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys are interested in videos like this, make sure to let me know in the comments below, and make sure to hit subscribe for more. If you're interested in reading some of my short stories, The Crumbling of a Nation and Other Stories is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and the TikTok shop. And if you're interested in hearing more about the release of my upcoming novel, make sure to follow me on all socials. You can find the links below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.